All right, welcome back to the deep dive. So today we're tackling something called syntactic ergativity. Uh, Sounds a bit technical, maybe?
It can seem that way, yeah. But it's
Yeah,
actually a really fascinating way some languages, well, set up their grammar. Quite different from English.
definitely. And we're looking at a source, Syntactic Ergativity Explained, to
Yes,
sort of guide us through it. Our goal really is just to get our heads around what it is and, why it's interesting for anyone curious about how languages tick.
exactly. So maybe the best starting point is, what is it?
Right, so the source makes a distinction first, doesn't it, between morphological and syntactic ergativity. We're focused on the syntactic kind today.
Yeah, that's key. Morphological is more about case markings on nouns. Syntactic ergativity goes deeper. It's about the fundamental grammar, the sentence structure.
Okay, so how does it work? You mentioned it treats subjects differently.
It does. Think about English. He slipped and he saw the dog. He is the subject in both, grammatically behaves similarly.
Uh-huh. Standard subject.
Right. But in a syntactically ergative language, the subject of slept, the intransitive verb, is treated grammatically like the dog in he saw the dog, the object.
Okay, wait. So the sleeper is like the seen dog,
And
grammatically.
grammatically speaking, yes, they often fall into the same category, often called absolutive. And the he in he saw the dog, the subject of the transitive verb, that's the one treated differently. That's the ergative.
Huh. Okay. So the doer of an action to something else is grammatically singled out.
You get to fit.
Yeah, that's different. Are there actually languages like this? It's not just theory?
Oh, absolutely. It's not just theoretical.
Right.
You find syntactic ergativity in various language families. Think some indigenous languages in Australia or parts of the Americas, for example. It's a real functioning system.
And this difference, it causes ripples, right?
Yeah.
The source mentions something about absolute restrictions on extraction. Sounds complex.
It sounds more complicated than it is, maybe. It basically means, you know how in English you can easily ask, who saw the dog? Or who did the dog see? You can focus on the subject or the object.
Yeah, seems straightforward.
Well, in many syntactically ergative languages, it's much easier to form questions or relative clauses focusing on that absolutive role, the sleeper or the seen dog.
Ah,
Moving the ergative subject, the he who saw the dog, can be restricted or require special grammatical hoops to jump through. Asking who saw might be grammatically trickier than asking who was seen.
okay. So if moving that main doer, the ergative, is tricky, how do they handle something like a relative clause, like the man who saw the dog left? You need to refer to that man.
Good question. They have ways. They often use specific strategies, maybe different constructions or markers to make it work. It often involves making the sentence structure align so the focus naturally falls on that absolutive argument. It's a different grammatical toolkit.
Right, different tools. And the source mentions anti-passive constructions. Is that one of the tools? Sort of a workaround.
Exactly. That's a perfect way to put it. An anti-passive is like, well, it's a way to take a transitive sentence, he saw the dog, and make it grammatically behave more like an intransitive one, he saw.
How does it do that?
It often downplays or even removes the object, the dog, changes the verb form slightly, and importantly, it lets the original doer take on that easier to handle absolutive grammatical role.
So you use the anti-passive if you need to focus on the doer in a context where the ergative role is restricted.
Precisely. It adjusts the roles to fit the grammatical possibilities.
And all this different way of organizing sentences, it challenges some big linguistic theories, doesn't it?
It really does. Many mainstream theories kind of assume a universal subject category that behaves consistently. Syntactic ergativity shows that's not the only way grammar can work. It forces linguists to reconsider what's truly fundamental across languages.
Interesting. And does it affect things like verb agreement, where the verb matches the subject or
Yeah,
object?
that too. In English, the verb usually agrees with the subject, right? He sees. But in some ergative languages, the agreement might primarily track that absolutive argument, the intransitive subject or the transitive object.
So the verb might agree with the dog in he saw the dog, or at least that grammatical slot.
It could, or it might agree with both in different ways, but the absolutive often plays a really central role in agreement patterns, much more so than in languages like English. It's another reflection of that core grammatical alignment.
Okay, wow. So boiling it down, the big takeaway seems to be syntactic ergativity is this whole other logic for sentence structure. The subject of doing something to something is treated differently from the subject of just being or doing something intransitively. And that latter subject aligns with the object.
That's the heart of it. It shows incredible diversity in how fundamental grammatical relations can be structured.
It really does. Which leads to maybe a final thought for you, our listener. If a language's basic grammar organizes the world like this, treating actors and undergoers so differently depending on the action, well, how might that subtly influence the way its speakers perceive actions, agency, and maybe even causality? Something to ponder.